The night breaks on a whisper that does not want its name. A kitchen clock ticks like a metronome for dread. Wife said, "Tell me this isn't real." The screen glows with a page that should not exist. Rain needles the window and makes the house smaller. Liam said, "Close that now." His voice tries for calm and lands on command. A voicemail icon blinks as if it knows a secret. Buyer said, "Confirm inventory before dawn." The word hangs like smoke and will not disperse. Wife said, "Inventory of what?" The question is already an answer. Silence answers first, and it answers honestly. A chair shifts back as if it plans to flee without its owner. Liam said, "You do not understand how this looks." She understands exactly how it feels. The fridge hums, and the hum sounds like a warning siren trying not to wake the neighbors. A tab closes, but the room stays open to the wrong world. The house feels borrowed from a stranger who does not miss it. A chair stands like a witness that refuses to swear. Liam said, "You are spiraling." The word spirals on its own and finds the drain. Wife said, "Who calls this late for business?" A voicemail plays and turns the room colder. Buyer said, "No delays tonight." She watches the lock on the basement door and counts the screws. She remembers none of them from last week. Liam said, "You never looked closely before." The sentence sounds like a confession wearing a mask. The laptop hum lifts like a trapped insect. She wants to close the screen, and finds it closes her instead. The question arrives again, cleaner and sharper. Wife said, "What are you selling?" The word selling scratches the enamel off the night. Liam said, "Consulting." He tries to smile and misplaces the muscles. She looks at the padlock and the new screws. She looks at the ring at the sink and the old vow. Buyer said, "Confirm." The screen offers a reply field like an open hand, asking for something it will not return. She does not type. She listens to how quiet it is before a siren would be. The silence feels like a choice being counted. She scrolls by not scrolling. Links crowd like strangers in a narrow hallway. Liam said, "You do not know what you are seeing." The screen shows categories without names. The shapes imply people without saying people. Wife said, "How long?" Clock moves in inches that feel like miles. Buyer said, "Timer started." The timer is not on the screen. It is in the body that knows danger before the mind agrees. Rain taps like fingers on a table waiting for a deal to close. She breathes and the room refuses to. The house becomes a box drawn by someone else. The fracture arrives as a sound, small and permanent. Wife said, "I am calling someone." The words feel like stepping onto thin ice. Liam said, "Do not do that." His hands lift, open, and mean, "Stop." The phone is heavy with names she avoided saving. Buyer said, "Delivery window ends at 4. The clock says 2:18. Numbers bruise truth into shape. She looks at the ring as if it could answer. It only keeps not answering. The storm leans against the wall and listens with them. Dawn does not arrive. The night only slows its breathing. The house holds its shape like a secret that refuses to be told. Wife said, "I will make tea." The kettle stays empty because movement would feel like confession. Liam said, "We should sleep." The suggestion curls beside the sink and dies without a sound. The clock refuses mercy and repeats itself. She walks to the window and does not pull the blind. The street is a photograph of safety that has not met the truth. Buyer said, "Confirm status." The words drift like fog under a door that was meant to fit. Wife said, "I am here." She means she still occupies the moment that split the night. The house hears her and shifts its weight on the foundation. A spoon waits to stir courage and fails. Her phone shows a battery that will outlast excuses. Liam said, "We can talk in the morning." Morning feels like a country that revoked her passport. Routine reaches for her like a friend who forgot her name. Wife said, tea then? Kettle finally fills, and the water sounds like a small apology. Liam said, you need rest. Rest has nowhere to sit. She sets a cup and forgets to light the stove. The ring at the sink keeps its silence like a paid guard. Buyer, said clock running. The phrase settles in the grout lines, and will not leave. Wife said, how long has it been running? The steam that should rise never appears. The rain gives the roof a metronome and the house keeps time. She watches her hands as if they belong to a witness, not to her. The cup cools into a clearer truth. This kitchen will always remember tonight. The refrigerator hum writes a note that nobody wants to read twice. A wedding photo leans in the magnet field and pretends to be lighter than it is. Liam said, it is just consulting. Consulting sounds like bleach poured on a stain that keeps showing through. Wife said, then open the door downstairs. The sentence stands in the doorway with its arms crossed. He answers with a silence that has learned to pass for normal. The rain breaks into applause for a victory no one claimed. Buyer said, prove capacity. Capacity hangs like a hook above breath. She does not cry. Even tears know the timing is wrong. The photo smiles with teeth from a weather that will not return. The bedroom keeps its shape around absence like a museum for a living exhibit. Wife said, I will lie down. She does not. She stands at the threshold so the carpet will not have to remember her weight. Liam said, please. The word carries a leash he forgot to hide. A drawer slides open and breathes an old lavender that cannot help. She counts the shirts, new locks, and small lies that fit in pockets. Buyer said, window closes at 4. The number makes the air thinner. She sits without resting, like a traveler in a station that canceled trains. The storm pushes its palm against the siding and refuses to leave. The private gesture arrives like a key pressed into wax. Wife said, I need a number I can trust. She writes a name in her notes and hides it behind a recipe for soup. Liam said, we are fine. Fine is a room with no doors and perfect paint. She turns her ring in her palm until the metal warms and loses its memory. Buyer said, final confirmation in 90 minutes. 90 minutes feels like a lifetime cut into equal mistakes. She prints a photo of the lock with the sound off, then deletes the print job and keeps the paper. Paper is thin, but real. She slides a folded bill and the note into her shoe. The house watches and does not object. Fear settles in, not as a guest, but as furniture. The house narrows into corridors that choose for her. The lock downstairs listens like an animal that has learned patience. Wife said, open it now. Her voice surprises both of them. Liam said, you are exhausted. Exhaustion does not install padlocks. Rain drags its nails across the siding, in long strokes. A draft rises from the gap under the door like a held breath. Buyer said, status. The word drops like a pebble down a well with no bottom. Wife said, show me. He places his palm on the door and smiles with no heat. The smile asks her to accept a softer lie. A floorboard complains as if it wants out. The clock steps toward 3 with steady shoes. She feels watched by something that is not a camera and not a person. Liam said, tomorrow. Tomorrow is a bridge that never lands. She takes one step closer, and the lock gleams like a warning. The router blinks like a heartbeat that refuses to calm. Liam said, this is security work. Security makes the room feel unsafe by definition. Wife said, then let me see the clients. He opens a laptop and invites her to admire nothing. The screen shows a maintenance banner that feels rehearsed. Buyer said, deliverable unchanged. The word deliverable scrapes the paint on the air. Liam said, you always hated my hours. She hates what those hours bought. He reaches to unplug and replug his alibi. The lights stutter and recover with neat obedience. Wife said, "What is downstairs?" He says the word storage as if it solves hunger. The storm answers with a fist of thunder and the cups shake in their sleep. "I need you." She feels the ceiling looking back and finds the reason. A smoke detector holds a dark pupil that does not blink. Wife said, "When did you install that?" Liam said, "After the break-ins." There were no break-ins, only explanations that arrive early. The tiny diode winks like a sarcastic star. Buyer said, "Verification requested." Verification tastes like metal on the tongue. Wife said, "Security for whom?" The silence wears a tie and pretends to be professional. She steps onto a chair and sees her own eye reflected inside the lens. The reflection makes her smaller than she feels. Liam said, "You are overreacting." The word overreacting kneels on her chest. The detector hums with a sound that might be real, and might be fear with electricity. The garage smells like cold rubber and older decisions. Liam said, "I need air." He lifts the door and lets the storm watch. A crate sits where the car should feel safe. Wife said, "What is that?" He says, "Supplies with a softness made to blunt edges." The label wears numbers that do not mean groceries. Buyer said, "Scan now." The word scan lands like a verdict without a judge. She steps closer, and the crate straps look like hands that learned discipline. Liam said, "Back inside." What? Back feels like surrender with carpet. A gust tilts the box a fraction, and something inside shifts its weight. The sound is small and human in shape. She knows the difference between wood and bone without proof. She risks the truth for a sliver of light. Wife said, "I need proof." She lifts her phone and frames the lock, the crate and his face like a confession that learned to stand still. Liam said, "Put that down." The words crack with a new edge. Buyer said, "Confirm or cancel." Confirm sounds like a door that chooses its owner. She sends a single photo to the number that lives under a soup recipe. And the message leaves with a tiny sound that feels too loud. Silence does not return. Liam said, "Who did you call?" She says a name that means help, even if help arrives late. The storm lowers its voice to hear better. The clock abandons 3 and approaches 4, like a witness who has seen enough. The phone lights her palm like a match in a cave. A reply arrives from the number she hid in soup. "I know lunch sign I rule." Unknown said, "Send a live check." The word live makes the walls breathe. Wife said, "Live of what?" Liam said, "Give me the phone." His hand hovers, trained to look gentle. The link opens to a marketplace shaped like an accusation. Icons blur, but their intent is sharp. Buyer said, "Open the crate on camera." The request is ordinary in tone, monstrous in aim. Wife said, "How do they know our house?" The screen shows a thumbnail of their kitchen from last week. It carries the same crooked spoon in the sink. Liam said, "Stop now." The house angles toward the basement like a compass with only one north. The rain moves from weather to witness. She grips the phone until the case chirps. The battery holds its nerve. Truth asks to be seen and brings a price tag. The refrigerator photo of a missing girl leans under a magnet like a doubt. Wife said, "Maya babysat here." The name returns with clean shoes and a soft laugh from last summer. Liam said, "Do not say her name." Silence folds into a smaller box. Buyer said, "Timer at 30. The number is a trap that looks like a clock. Wife said, "Where is she?" He stares at the floor as if it holds an alibi. The storm breathes through the vent and chills the room. Liam said, "She was never missing." The sentence lands without echo and rearranges the air. The magnet tilts as if it heard. She tastes metal and memory. The chair near the table forgets how to be furniture. Her throat closes on a word she will not use. The house shrinks to a single corridor between then and now. The word never makes a map with new borders. Wife said, "What did you do?" Liam said, "I corrected a debt." Debt arrives wearing mercy and leaves with a ledger. Buyer said, "Verify now." Crate waits like a stage that hates applause. Wife said, "You told her it was safe." He does not answer, which is an answer with teeth. The lock downstairs gleams like a coin flipped for fate. Liam said, "I did not lose her." He watches her face find the rest. He said, "I gave her away." The staircase tilts under the weight of the sentence. The rain quiets, as if the storm wants to hear. She takes the first step because truth demands motion. The phone camera opens with a soft chime that feels obscene. The house knows what it has become. It refuses to look away. The padlock opens with a click that feels like a funeral bell. Wife said, "Back up." He obeys by inches. She lifts the crate lid and finds absence arranged to look clean. Belts, cuffs, and a folded sweatshirt marked with an M stare up. Buyer said, "Show interior." She tilts the phone and the straps gleam like rules. Liam said, "It was transit only." Transit is a lie that pretends to be a bridge. A ledger sits beneath, pages stamped with her name on shipments. Wife said, "You used me." The paper oils her fingers with proof. The storm scrapes the siding, and the light buzzes like a trapped fly. She knows this room will not leave her even when she leaves it. The camera sees enough and wants to close its eye. The safer lie dies without ceremony. Wife said, "I recorded you." Her voice is level, as if reading weather. Liam said, "They will come for us both. Us fractures on the floor and will not reassemble." Buyer said, "Final call in 14. 14 is a cliff that measures itself." She slides her ring into her pocket like evidence. The soup note contact pings with a single word. "Unknown," said received. The word folds a parachute inside her chest. Wife said, "This ends now." The house goes quiet in the way churches go quiet after thunder. She backs from the crate and holds the lens steady. Liam said, "You loved me." Love nods and steps aside. The storm lifts its hand from the roof. What remains is the cost of breathing true. The recording plays his voice back to him and refuses to blink. Wife said, "Say it again." The speaker fills the kitchen with a version of Liam that never loved the light. Liam said, "Turn that off." The storm leans closer, hungry for the answer. Buyer said, "Final 10 now." The words tick like a bomb wrapped in customer service. Wife said, "Say her name." He stares at the floor where their shoes used to wait together. Liam said, "Maya was a transaction." The sentence stains the tile in a color no mop knows. She sets the phone on the table like a gavel. Wife said, "Give me the basement key." He laughs without breath, which is not laughter. The lock glints from the hall and chooses a side. The fridge hum tries to cover the silence and fails. Unraveled. She pulls the ledger from her sweater, and the pages shake like leaves. Liam said, "You will ruin us." Us is a bridge that fell long before she stepped on it. He reaches for the ledger and meets the person she became. Wife said, "No more lies." She slides the papers into a plastic bag like lungs into a body that wants to live. Liam said, "You do not understand the network." Network sounds small beside the word harm. Buyer said 5. The number pulls the room tighter. She lifts their wedding photo from the fridge and studies the summer that tried to save them. Wife said, "I release you." The frame hits the sink and the glass turns to rain. Liam said, "Please." The plea shows up late and without shoes. She pockets the ring and keeps the evidence visible. The kettle screams as if it finally found its purpose. She pulls the plug on his laptop and the glow dies like a tame sun. The house listens to the quiet that follows and learns a new language. The recording plays again, louder now, and truth grows teeth. Wife said, listen to yourself. Liam said, I did what had to be done. Had to is the anthem of cowards. Byers said, 4. The air counts with them and loses patience. He lunges and the chair scrapes a warning across tile. She taps speaker and his confession loops like a bell over water. Neighbor said, everything okay in there? The voice arrives through the wall with a human temperature. Wife said, no. The syllable opens a door in the night. Liam said, you will regret this. Regret already sleeps on the couch and pays rent. She steps back and the phone lens holds steady like a lighthouse. The storm eases, but the house remains flooded with facts. She moves first, because fear finally learned to run. Wife said downstairs. He follows because control hates being alone. At the threshold, she pivots and lets him pass. Liam said, we can fix this. Fix sounds like tape on a sinking hull. Byers said 3. The number opens the floor and shows the drop. He steps into the basement and turns to bargain. She swings the door and the frame catches with a stun. Wife said, stay there. The padlock in her pocket clicks like a verdict returning home. Liam said, you cannot. The chain slips through the latch as easily as breath. The bare bulb paints his face with a terrible honesty. She backs away with the phone held high like a small sun. The number she hid in soup answers on the first ring. Unknown, said units en route, stay safe. Safety is a word that limps but keeps moving. Wife said, recording and documents secured. She names the address the way one names a wound for a doctor. Liam said, they will not believe you. Believe stands taller than he remembers. Byers said, 2. The clock on the oven turns to 4 and refuses to applaud. She opens the garage and lets the storm breathe through the house. Neighbor said, I am calling too. Community returns like a flock with sharp eyes. Wife said, doors unlocked for entry. The hallway stretches into a clear path. The siren begins as a thread and quickly becomes rope. She does not cry. She stands in the rain and lets the night see her. Sirens unspool down the street and lace the rain with red. The front door opens to uniforms that move like sentences with periods. Officer Alvarez said, hands visible. The house exhales a decade at once. Wife said, basement padlocked, evidence intact. Liam said, she set me up. His voice looks for a floor that will take it. Officer Eichbel said, you are detained. The word fits him better than his shirt. Neighbor said, we saw the messages. Witness arrives with shoes on. Thorne backs away to watch from the curb. Byers said, 1. The alert pings and dies like a beached insect. Wife said, recording on phone and cloud. The ledger sits on the counter like a loaded map. Officer Alvarez said, do not move. The command is a hand that never shakes. She nods and the room accepts the new gravity. Dawn is still far, but a light has already changed. The basement gives up its breath in pieces. Officer Eichbel said, lock photographed opening now. Metal clicks like a calendar flipping. Wife said, crate first, then ledger under it. Procedure answers like a hymn. Liam said, you do not know the supply chain. The chain shows its links on the floor. Crime tech, said tag and bag. The cuffs glint like punctuation that ends a dangerous sentence. Byers said 0. The counter reaches mercy and stops. Wife said, there are straps, cuffs, a sweatshirt with an M. The letters stand at attention. Officer Alvarez said, victim's name. Wife said Maya. The syllables stop pretending to be light. The bulb hums and tries to comfort no one. The camera shutters until truth has a stack of proofs. The kitchen becomes a witness stand with appliances. Officer Alvarez said, this will be recorded. The red light on the body cam blinks like a careful heart. Wife said, he told me she was never missing. Liam said, context. Context asks to be paid. Detective Rao said, you used her identity for shipments. The ledger flips to a page that recognizes its owner. Wife said, he said he gave her away. The sentence stands up and signs its name. Liam said, I provided safe transit. Safe chokes on the air and sits down. Detective Rao said, names of buyers. Silence arrives with a lawyer's haircut. Neighbor said we heard him confess. The clock reads 4:29 and looks older. The rain thins to mist and the house stops shaking. Truth does not comfort. It keeps very good notes. Dawn finally remembers the street. Outside, cameras blink awake as neighbors become a chorus. Detective Rao said, we have a lead on a storage site. Lead is a bridge that charges toll. Wife said, I will testify. The word costs her and gives her back a spine. Liam said, you need me to explain the routes. He smiles with teeth he did not earn. Officer Alvarez said, you will explain to a judge. The cruiser door yawns like a small metal knight. The storm has gone, but everything is wet with proof. Neighbor said, Maya's mother is at the end of the block. Grief stands there with a coat on. Wife said, tell her I am sorry and I will not be quiet. Silence crosses the street and does not return. The siren starts soft, respectful as it leaves. Justice steps forward with heavy boots and no music. The house learns to breathe without him. Evidence tags bloom on corners like quiet flags. Detective Rao said, we will search the site now. Now means hours and a calendar of hearings. Wife said, I will change the locks anyway. Locks are not promises, they are prayers with hardware. Neighbor said, we will stay until family arrives. Community puts on a pot of coffee and means it. The ledger leaves in a box that respects its weight. Liam said, you will miss me. She studies the sink where the ring once waited. Wife said, I will not miss what you sold me. The sentence tastes like iron and daylight. The rain has stopped, but the roof still remembers. Wyatt returns with a clipboard and takes attendance. Wait. She opens the windows and lets the night leave in pieces. Dawn folds in like a tired witness. The convoy noses through the storage gate and drips rain on concrete. Detective Rao said, Unit 12. Locks snap like thin bones giving up. Crime tech said recording. Their flashlights comb the quiet and find only shapes of absence. Wife said, check the ledger codes. The numbers on paper line up with the doors that open to nothing. Officer Alvarez said, call the families after each clear. Procedure walks forward with heavy shoes. A hair tie waits on bare floor like a question that grew old. The air smells of cardboard and solvent and unkept promises. Liam is not here to translate cruelty into business. Buyer is silent because the market hates daylight. Wife said, keep going. The key ring rattles like teeth. Unit 13 opens and returns only echoes. Justice arrives, but it does not arrive for everyone. The sun climbs a little and refuses comfort. The list in her hand grows shorter without mercy. The courthouse corridor smells like paper and tired coffee. Chains whisper where voices refuse to. Liam said, tell them I cooperated. His eyes search for a version of her that still believes. Wife said, you traded people. The words land and stay. Public defender said, no contact. The deputy steers him along with a calm built of repetition. Cameras blink red dots that pretend to be eyes. He tries to smile, and the muscles remember nothing. Liam said, we were a team. Team dissolves on the tile without a stain. The judge's door opens and closes with a sound that likes rules. She watches him disappear around a bend that never asked for him. Officer Alvarez said, your statement is on record. Record holds lines straighter than memory. The hallway exhales and fills again. She stands until the air stops shaking. Then she turns toward the daylight at the glass. The community center smells like bleach and hope. Folding chairs make a map for grief. Maya's mother holds a flyer that has learned to live in her hands. Mother said, "Did she know you?" The question arrives without blame and breaks anyway. Wife said she trusted us. Trust is a bone that will not set straight again. Detective Rao said, "We have teams following the roots." Roots sketch a net on a city that tries to sleep. Mother said, "Bring her home or bring me the truth." The room stops pretending to be neutral. Wife said, "I will testify. I will not be quiet." The syllables stand on their own feet. A volunteer sets tea on a table that shakes. The clock is gentle for once. A door opens and a list of names is carried in. The list is longer than any promise. They read together without pronouncing hope. Home receives her like a place that remembers both sides. The cameras come down with small pops of regret. Neighbor said, "We can patch the holes." She said, "Leave them for now." Empty circles show where the lies watched her sleep. The basement door stands open to bleach and fresh air. She lugs the crate out and leaves it on gravel for pickup. Officer Alvarez said, "We will collect it at noon." Noon sounds honest. The ring rests inside an evidence bag that lives on a shelf. Wife said, "You do not go back on." The kettle sings and learns a softer pitch. She wipes the counter until the tile remembers a kitchen. The house grows taller by an inch. A new key turns and fits without argument. The storm has left fingerprints on the windows. She keeps them a day to remember the audit. Evening folds the street into a quieter shape. The ledger is gone to custody, and the house is light by choice. She sits where the recording once trembled. The window keeps a square of sky like a promise that is careful. Neighbor said, "We left soup on the step." She smiles, and it does not break. Her phone shows a message from a number that will not reveal a face. Unknown said, "We will keep searching." Searching keeps its coat on and stays. She writes the statement one last time in a plain notebook. The words line up and refuse to decorate themselves. She closes the book and listens to the clock earn its keep. The air tastes of soap and rain and something unafraid. Wife said, "I stayed." The sentence sits down beside her and never leaves again.